Hi. You're in for a treat today. I'm going to do something I've never done before. We are going to do a movie review of The Mummy. Now, I wasn't planning on seeing this movie. I wasn't planning on seeing it at all. But then the reviews came in. At the time of this recording, the movie has a 17% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and honestly, I kind of got curious. What is going on with this Mummy movie? So I went to see it, and I gotta tell you, the first act, it's actually pretty good. Tom Cruise character, he's a ne'er-do-well. What exactly he's doing is not very well defined. He's got a comedic sidekick. They unleash an ancient evil, as you do. And as you know from the trailers, they crash in an airplane. And that's the beginning of the second act. And that's actually when the movie begins to fall apart. But the first act is actually not bad. It feels like a typical Tom Cruise action movie. It's kind of funny. It's got decent action. It's got little quips and such. The only bad part is a very, very long monologue from the Russell Crowe character. Long ago, the mummy, it rose from ancient Egypt, but really kind of a little to the side of ancient Egypt there was this mummy, and she had a super awesome knife. It's probably like +3 versus AC and against magic users. It had a cool little red thing on the tip. It probably would go for a lot on eBay. By the way, spoilers for this entire review, because I hadn't yet told you who Russell Crowe is. If you don't know yet, he's the one, the only Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And that's really what causes the movie to fall apart, because you, as the viewer, you're actually not really sure who to root for once things start moving forward, because there's the mummy. She's evil. She's sucking people's souls out through the mouth and turning them into more mummies. Which is actually a pretty cool effect, and they do a good job with the mummy herky-jerkying and all of that kind of thing is actually pretty fun. But her goal in the movie is to stab Tom Cruise with a knife that's got a special jewel and turn him into the living embodiment of Set. Now, exactly what that will entail is not clear. The one thing they tell us is that he will have the power of life and death. But we're not quite sure who to root for, because about halfway through the midpoint, she gets captured, and you find out that there's actually a monster squad. If anyone remembers that movie from the 80s, there's a squad of people who fight monsters, and it's led by Dr. Jekyll, played by Russell Crowe. Let's see if he's still giving that explanation. Long ago, the mummy, she wanted a BLT, but when she completed the sandwich, she reached her hand into the refrigerator, and she found that there was no money. Oh boy. And he is planning on killing Tom Cruise, and not just killing Tom Cruise, he's planning on turning him into Set exactly like she wants. Oh, and he also, Russell Crowe, is planning on dissecting the mummy, and it's not quite clear whether she's going to be alive during that, but it's not good. It actually makes you feel somewhat sympathetic for her, and so you're not really sure who to root for. Now, of course, Tom Cruise is the titular character. He becomes sort of the new Mummy, but you're not sure if you're supposed to root for him either, because he's kind of a jerk, and his friend dies because of his actions, and he sleeps with a woman for no other reason than to get a valuable map from her, which he steals from her. He does do some good stuff as well, but his character is very conflicted. Now, I have no problem with complex characters. I applaud that. But when you're watching a movie, if you don't even know who you should be rooting for, what happens is the movie just stalls out. And do I think that this movie deserved a 17% Rotten Tomato? Probably not. I've seen a lot worse movies. It's not that bad. But Lord, it's not great either. A couple of things that were also neat. One of them is mummies in the water. That was actually pretty cool. I did enjoy that. I've said for a long time that one of the scariest things there are is the undead in water. But it ends in such a bizarre way. It ends with Tom Cruise becomes the avatar of Set, but he also doesn't. And I have a real problem with this because the movie has set up its own rules. The rules are thus: if Tom Cruise is stabbed with the dagger, with the jewel in it, he will become the avatar of Set, and he will have the power of life and death. So the two things that happen differently is, one, he cracks the crystal first, and he stabs himself instead of her stabbing him. Now, you could infer that that means things are different, but the movie doesn't justify its own actions. And that's weird. So he becomes the avatar of Set, but essentially he just is able to fight it off. He essentially just is able to concentrate real hard and not be. And what's more, he kills the mummy by sucking the life out of her. Now, this is consistent with what everything we've seen so far in the movie. That's how she sucks the life out of people. But then to return life to his female romantic interest who is killed, the way he returns her to life is the same way the Hulk brings Tony Stark back to life in the first Avengers movie. It literally just shouts at him, and he makes a spooky face. And there's nothing in the movie that says that that's what would have been internally consistent was if he sucks the life out of her, and then you as the viewer infer, okay, now he's got extra life, and then he kisses the female lead and gives her life. That would actually make sense. And to further confuse this, when we end the movie, the sidekick, the comedic sidekick who's killed, is brought back to life. And that just breaks the movie. Now, I'm sorry, that breaks the franchise, because if you have a character who can give life to anybody that he wants, you've just removed all stakes. It's literally the problem from Into Darkness, where they brought the Tribble back to life, and then later they brought Kirk back to life. By using that blood, they have just conquered death. And so now you have a character where they could have gotten around this very easily. He took the life from the mummy, he gives the life to her, and then no problem. Because all that means is that in order for him to give life, he has to take it, which is a great excuse why he wouldn't do that. But with bringing the sidekick back to life, who cares in a movie now, in this universe, in the dark universe, if anyone dies? Because now you have a character who can pop in and bring them back to life. And that's terrible. And it ends with him and the comedic sidekick riding off towards the Temple of Giza. It ends with Russell Crowe further saying how much he needs to build a monster squad. Then once the mummy had to go to the ATM, but it was the new kind that required a chip, and since her card was over 5,000 years old, she had to go inside, and the bank teller said, WTF, it's a mummy, and she was all like, I'm just going to suck out your soul instead of making a withdrawal, and she went. She also took one of the lollipops. And we get some delightful Cockney from Russell Crowe when he becomes Mr. Hyde briefly. Hello, Governor. I'm going to beat you up. I'm going to knock the stuffing right out of you. Apples and pears take the stairs, and so on and such forth. Bob's your uncle. It was pretty funny. One thing that I did genuinely like is there's a minor little moment where the female lead knocks someone unconscious with a book from the Monster Club, and the book is the Necronomicon from the Brandon Fraser Book of the Dead. And when it falls to the ground, you can see the little key opening mechanism, and you realize that it is that. And that was a fun little moment. I always like it when people get hit in the face with a book. My conclusion: don't watch this movie, or at least don't pay any money to see this movie. It's not a 17%, but it's not very good. It's not worth seeing. It doesn't hold up. Like a lot of high concept sci-fi fantasy movies, it starts out really strong and it just can't pull it through. So I've been your ASMR host, Michael, and do me a favor, watch out for mummies in the shower. Hey, I'm showering in here already. What, you was expecting a mummy or something? Hello, my baby, hello, my darling, hello, my ragtime gal.